Good morning, Robert Ciresi here. Thank you for joining us again on some LinkedIn Live Industry Insights. Today we're going to be talking about counteroffers. For those who don't know me, my name is Robert Ciresi. I'm the CEO of CiresiMorek. We're an executive search firm. You know who I am and why we do the video. It's rather simple. So I've been in search since 1998. I am not in talent acquisition and I am not a headhunter. For nearly 30 years, I've been compensated for building great relationships based on honesty and integrity, introducing companies to candidates and candidates to companies 24/7. Most times it works out very, very well for all parties. I've been very fortunate. I've never applied for a job, and I've never written a resume. My knowledge comes from nearly 30 years working with great people who have trusted me to, help them out. Created CiresiMorek in 2012. We specialize in partnering with the Fortune 1000, small and mid-cap companies, private equity, mostly in the industrial space. So why the series? Almost every day I'm asked a question about whether it be the resume or counteroffers or what have you, and I cannot answer everybody's questions, so I decided to create a video that can maybe help those out there looking for new roles or new opportunities, and maybe like I said, just help them. Interviewing and hirings are a huge decision, so the more you know, the better. And joining me today is Maggie Mon-Johnson. Maggie's been here for 2 years, right? Maggie's our Director of Operations at CiresiMorek. Before joining us, Maggie was at a retained search firm here in Northeastern Ohio. So I'll let Maggie introduce herself.
Yeah, so I'm Maggie. I've been here about 2 years, and I spent about a decade doing recruiting before moving into more of the ops side. So it's been a really cool and unique position to have in terms of understanding the candidate process and the flow working with candidates, and then coming internally and seeing how things like counteroffers impact the ops side of things as well. So we're going to be chatting about counteroffers today. Behind the camera, we have Mandy, our Director of Recruiting, and she's going to fire in some questions. So go ahead.
And before we get started with Mandy, just a quick note: if you're watching, how to get a job. What Maggie does not know is that she never applied for a job. You guys may not know this. She sent me an email one time, and she just said, "Hey, I've heard the good things about your search firm. Can we chat?" And I responded. So it wasn't a LinkedIn posting. It wasn't, a friend of a friend. I had no idea who she was, but her sending that email, which is different than 99% of the population, I said, here's an individual who took a shot, and it got my attention. I responded, "Yeah, sure, let's chat." So worked out. So far, so good.
That's what he says today. We'll ask him again tomorrow.
All right. So how common are counteroffers, and how often do we see counteroffers come up in our process with the candidates we interact with today?
Me or you?
You go first.
So how common are they? They happen all the time. I think we learn from a young age how to counteroffer. I joke, but my kids counteroffer me all the time. Candidates counter all the time. Customers counteroff all the time. So it is every day you get a counteroffer. So yeah, I made a note because I knew this question was coming. Is that very often when I'm interviewing a candidate for the first time. So Joe Smith, nice to meet you. Blah blah blah. Thanks for spending some time with me and learn more about you, and vice versa. And I ask him. I'll ask the person directly. Are you looking for a new job, or are you trying to better your current opportunity? Because once I know that, I know if they're searching for a counteroffer rather than going out, interviewing, testing, and so forth, putting stuff out there. So it happens all the time.
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference that you see in people that are really, really good at this job versus, especially for some of us when we were first learning, is asking that question. Because when we're chatting with candidates almost always know what they're coming at when they start a search process. It's either they're trying to get a counteroffer from their existing company, or they're truly looking for a new opportunity. And if as a headhunter we don't understand what angle they're coming at it from, it derails the whole process. So that's something Robert is exceptionally good at, and so are several other people on our team. But you have to get to that as early as possible, because in almost any case of a strong employee, their current employer is going to try to counteroffer them, especially in this market.
And everyone wants to maximize their earnings, and they should, without damaging their brand. to be very careful how you do that. But everyone wants to be counteroffered. Okay, it could be prom. Nobody asked me to prom. That's a whole other story. But
Seems like he's over it too.
but truthfully, I don't know if you were asked by prom that you don't want to go to prom with, but let's say you were. Okay, but let's say that happened, right? And you're like, well, I really want to hear from Jim versus thank you. So that's a counteroffer. Right. So, but it happens all the time. It's how you handle it. So,
what is your opinion on counteroffers?
My opinion on I think they're a necessity. They're going to happen. They're not going to stop them. I tell my customers, because my customers will ask me, they'll say, hey, Joe's leaving. What do you think I should do? And like I said, after doing this for 30 years, I have so many relationships out, and I have a lot of very great relationships, and people trust me. They should, because I trust them. But I tell them, listen, if you think this person is good, you should keep that person, because you sure as hell don't want to have to pay me a bunch of people to replace that person. But I think that they're there, they exist. You just got to know how to handle them. But sometimes if you create one, accept one, the trust is broken. Most times they do not work out. You just got to be very careful on how you manage expectations, because it can break. And I think we're going to dive into this later. It can break a trust that you may have with your employee or employer. So.
Yeah, the super type A part of me always falls back on the data with counteroffers of, I think it's 90% of the time, if you accept a counteroffer, in 6 months, you're looking to leave again. So they don't really work, is my opinion on them. I think it's so much easier to say that from a database perspective versus the emotions of a counteroffer. When you get a counteroffer, you feel so pretty, so special, and you're like, why wouldn't I take this? But it's taking a step back to assess where that takes you long term. So my opinion is they don't work. I think it's really hard to take the emotion out of it for people, because in a lot of ways it's easier to stick around and accept it versus kind of taking the plunge into a new opportunity. But my opinion is they don't work.
How do you tell, or how do you consult with a candidate when they tell you that they've received a counteroffer from their current employer?
I panic. I was still at the phase when I was actively recruiting that I was just where do we go from here? Because it is such an emotional process looking for a new job that you're trying to talk someone out of a situation that the easier decision is to stay and keep the money. Right. I think the best angle to come at it from is talking about what that does to their credibility and their reputation. If you accept a counteroffer, you will be known as someone that accepted a counteroffer for the rest of your career. There are cases where accepting a counteroffer does make sense, but if you become the person that is always accepting counteroffers, I'm not really sure that's a badge that I would want to wear.
I'm trying to think of the Cavs player. Was it Carlos Booker? Who was a Cavs player that counteroffered and we lost him? So listen, they're going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to, I'm jaded. I'm not going to sit here and judge someone, because we all take counteroffers in some capacity. But if I know someone's good when I first talk to them, I know they're going to get a counteroffer, so I just bring it up immediately, right? It's simple. You're attractive. People want you. They want to date you. They want to be with you, whatever it might be. So if you're that, then everybody's going to want to make you counteroffer. So if you know this going into it, and you can kind of have real conversations, that's why you ask, hey, if you want to stay where you're at, I'll help you ask the right questions. But if you want to leave, let's figure out a way to leave. But I don't get mad. It's people are going to do it. Jim, if you look at someone like, Myles Garrett took a counteroffer, right? Jim Tomey took a counteroffer, right? Everyone takes counteroffers. So, but you got to hit it off immediately and just ask the person's motivation. Do you want to do this? But if you're caught off guard, if there's a headhunter watching this, or an HR person watching this, or a hiring manager, if you get caught off because somebody wanted to a counteroffer, then you're an idiot. Because you should know, if you want them, somebody else wants them. So you got to bring it up and say, listen, this is what's going to happen. That's why actually I tell my customers, a lot of my customers say that we got to stay within the midpoint. That's garbage. Pay someone, a fair market, because if somebody's making $150,000 and you offer them, let's just say 15%. So what is that? 10 off the top of my head. What is that, Al? Help me out. You're smarter than me. 10% is 50%.
15,000 plus 7.5.
Yeah, 22.5.
22.5.
So that if you're going to offer that, guess what? Now their current employer is going to go on top of that, right? That's just how it works. So we can play the game all day long, but I don't get that upset unless somebody like really lies, but they're gonna happen. So
Yeah, and tying back to like the Miles Garrett example, is like there's a point at which a counteroffer, you can't counter a counteroffer. Like they said, like I forget what Miles Garrett said about like even if it was X amount of money, it's in my best interest to leave Cleveland. Browns come in just slightly over that, and we're staying. Like there's always going to be that point.
I didn't see anybody burning Miles Garrett's jersey for taking a counteroffer. So
no, we're thrilled that you're staying with us, Miles. Never leave.
yeah.
We're
If you're
big
not
fans.
as Sweets and Geeks, come see us.
What is your favorite and or best counter offer or horror story that you've had?
So I've got 30 years on this. So your question is, what are my favorite, best counteroffer story?
Or horror story.
No, so my best, Aaron, you're probably not watching, but a buddy of mine named Aaron, I've known Aaron for a long time. I had an offer for him to go to Dana, and he didn't want to leave his employer. And I knew this, like I knew he wasn't going to accept this offer, but I helped him leverage, negotiate with his current employer how to keep him. So, because he may not have the tools to do it. So I actually helped him get a counter offer. And I knew where the offer was coming from. It just wasn't the best fit for him and his family. So truthfully, I helped him do that. Recently it happened, I have a family member who didn't, and I don't know if we're going to target this a little bit, but he didn't want to leave his employer and he wanted to kind of shop his resume around. And I gave him ammunition to have a conversation with his employer on how to maybe ask for more money. Because the one thing people do not like doing is they do not like asking for more money. It's tough for them. So I gave him some industry stats, some knowledge of the industry, the role, and so forth. So that was a counter offer, but I helped him negotiate a better deal for himself. But it was an open conversation with him and his employer. So horror stories, I don't call them horror stories, but when people just lie, that's hard because, we get kicked in the teeth once in a while because people say, headhunters, and I'll say a lot of headhunters are, garbage human beings, but I think we do a hell of a job at branding customers, part of the customer being extremely honest. It's one thing that will always be as honest. So when we are helping someone, brand someone, help them with the interview process and so forth, right? If we say, hey, are you going to submit a counteroffer? They say, no, we're not, and they go ahead and do it. It makes us look like liars. And that's the horror stories when I'm helping someone and they lie to us. You don't have to lie. I get it. You got to be protective and a little bit cagey, but don't be squirrely. Like just be honest, so I can tell my customer, saying, listen, this is what happened. Let's move on. It's when people lie because you can't fix lies ever. So that would be, and those horror stories. Like I said, we've had, and if you're watching this and you're a hiring manager or candidate, I'm sure. You get the text on Sunday, can we talk? Shit, sorry. So it's like the can we talk is the worst one. And you probably got them, being in the role you have like no, I just want to respond no, right? But can you talk means I'm not taking the job because I accepted the counter offer. Yeah. And just be honest. Like people have a hard time being honest because we might talk about this a little bit, but I have 27,000 connections. Daily, I'm on LinkedIn. Daily, somebody asks me if I know someone. And I promise you, if you lie to me, in my experience, I'll tell someone, listen, this is what happened. Because I'm very honest with people. So, I don't know. But horror stories, I can go all day on horror stories and, good stories as well. So, because sometimes they do work out. They worked out for Aaron. Hell, my wife was engaged and I offered a counter offer to join me and that worked out. So that was 20 some years ago. So yeah, without counter offers, I wouldn't be married and have kids.
Yeah. I think My worst or maybe not favorite story or horror story, but I do think when you find a good headhunter and someone you trust and someone that you're working with, and they go to bat to get you everything that you have asked for in an offer. This wasn't actually me working on this, but Brian Seenerth, if you're listening, I remember this one. He worked to get this candidate everything that they asked for, from a base, bonus, LTIP, equity perspective, was so excited about the deal, and it basically was then utilized to get a counter. And I think that is hard when you almost like take advantage of someone that
Trying to help you.
is trying to help you and is like truly an exceptional headhunter, because they are few and far between. So I would say don't do that. And then I think the other really hard ones are once you've signed an offer letter and then you accept a counter, that's brutal. Because again, you like gave your word that you're accepting a job and then you just completely backed out on it. If you're negotiating before you put your pen on the paper, I guess like we kind of expect it. But once you sign it, like in our minds, you gave us your word.
In everybody's mind, the employer's
Yeah.
mind. I mean, once you sign an offer letter, everybody thinks you're locked in, and then they're going to tell their bosses, their friends, and so forth that, hey, I filled this role. And then when you don't, you lied. So just
Yeah.
don't lie.
How do you wish everyone, or what do you wish everyone knew about a counteroffer?
What do I wish everyone knew about a counteroffer? Well, like I said, you talked about Googling this, right? But there's more to, I mean, I personally feel that you have to let it's a hard one, because you really can't, you got to have a good relationship with your employer, okay? So if you're looking for a new job, what's the best way to put this? You got to figure out why you're on the market. If you're on the market because more money or whatever it might be, right? Do you address that with your boss or your boss's boss? I know it's tough to do, but maybe that's the path you go. Instead of kind of, the word's not cheating, but taking time off to go work, to go identify a new offer. Because in reality, you want to stay where you're current at. And I always tell folks, especially if they manage people, if you manage people, wouldn't you want someone that worked for you to have open conversation with you, saying, listen, I want to make more money. I want more advancement. Maybe I want more vacation. Maybe I want my tuition covered, just something, right? If you'd want that person to talk to you, okay, but you choose not to do it with your boss. So you want that open line of communication. But, I think what people don't really understand is, like I said, once you've accepted a counteroffer, you kind of have, I guess, that scarlet letter. You're kind of scorned a little bit. Like, we take notes. We track our counteroffers. If someone's taking a counteroffer, we'll say counter. Like, it's like, this person has history of accept the counteroffers, right? Does that mean they're bad people? No, it does not. But we know that this person has maybe accepted an offer in writing or not been but we do track all that stuff. But I would tell you, most times it doesn't work out. I can't tell you the industry stats it might be, but this is the true thing. When we do intake calls with our customers, and I say, why is this role open? It's because they're confidentially replacing someone that they counteroffered a few months prior. So just happened recently. Guy accepted a counteroffer, and 3 months later, his boss called me and said, I want you to replace, Joe Smith. I said, why? Well, he put us in the box. We counteroffered him. It's not working out like we thought. Because you also have expectations too. When you expect a counteroffer, you think, oh, they're just going to pay me more money. No, like your job's like, I had situations where some of my friends took the counteroffers, and my friends, and I said, you do realize they just threw a bunch of money at you, right? Well, guess what? Your life's going to suck now, because now they own you for 6 months or a year,
Right.
because you have nowhere else to go.
Right.
You've accepted a counteroffer. They're giving you a wage, and guess what? You signed up, you thought you're just getting more money. No, now your travel's going up, your responsibility's going up, because they got to justify to their boss why they might have given you a 20, 30% increase. Well, the only way to do that is throw more responsibilities. So you wanted more money. Your intention was to get more money, okay? But now your job just got a hell of a lot harder. So that's what happens. So people will call us. There is a trend. They'll call us afterwards and say, hey, you were right. You know, it happens quite a bit.
Yeah, those are kind of mine too. Is one, I think it's a short-term fix for everyone. You know, they statistically they don't work on the candidate side, and then on the client side, or if you're the company and someone basically comes asking for a counteroffer, like you're a little annoyed. You're like, oh, so you were out looking for another job. You're clearly unhappy. Your expectations increase. And then the other thing is that right, wrong, or indifferent, and I don't think it's, you know, great to hold grudges, but it's really hard to forget when someone accepts a counteroffer. There are cases where it makes sense, but you are forever in our minds someone that accepts counteroffers. So
We joked about this last time we were on camera. Like, so just recently, someone that I placed received a counteroffer. And I said, okay, got it, understood. They threw equity money, all these things, right? I'm sure your employer is going to change their ways and make it better for you. And I said, did you get everything in writing? He said, yes, it's forthcoming. Okay, great. You're locked and loaded. 2 weeks later, he called me and said they reneged on our offer. And I said, well, you told me you got everything in writing. He said, well, I didn't get everything in writing. And I literally wanted to reach the phone and choke him because you lied, just those 2 or 3 lies, right? And I told him how to handle it. And he still was the smarter person. Listen, I can't make a widget. You know, I can't do anything that a lot of my customers do, but I know how to play this game. And he just lied. And I said, get everything in writing. You have something in writing. He said, oh, I'll get it. He didn't get it. So sorry about your luck.
What recommendations would you give somebody if they were trying to evaluate to take a counteroffer or to move on to a new opportunity?
what was the first reason that you were looking to make a move anyways? I think you got to go back to what prompted happy employees, people that are happy in their career with the company they're with, don't proactively go out there to have conversations. If you're out there and you're interviewing, something
Something's wrong.
is wrong.
Yeah.
It could be a big thing or it could be a little thing, but go back to that reason. And if it's something small, like relatively speaking, like you want a couple more vacation days or something like that,
Talk to your boss.
talk to your boss.
Yeah.
If it's something big, like you don't like the strategy of the company, well, if you're a blip on the radar in a 10,000 person company, I hate to break it to you, they're not changing their strategy because you don't like it. So
You're not changing their benefits because you don't like the benefits.
yeah, like you have to assess whether or not you have pull on the thing that is prompting you to consider new opportunities. If it's not fixable, like why would you ever accept a counteroffer? Because you're in the exact same spot in 48 hours when the excitement of the, additional money kind of subsides, is my thought.
So I might be a little jaded, but I tell people you're grown up. You have to create your own career. And it's not just applying for jobs or waiting for headhunters to call you. You have to own your career. If you don't, you're an idiot. If you're unhappy, be a grown up and address it. Don't just wait to get fired or a shitty review, or this. Like talk to your boss, especially if you respect your boss, have a good relationship with your boss. Hopefully you do. And have a real conversation. Buy them coffee, go to lunch. Say, listen, I'm not happy. Can we address some of these things? And if it's a good boss, they'll try to address it, right? Or more, whatever it might be. If they're a bad boss, they'll just ignore it, right? But you have to own your career, and you have to make grown-up decisions. So, and you have to, like I said, if you want to make more money, you can't just tell me, boss, I want to make more money. Why, right? Why should I pay you more, right? And if you're not doing that research, then, like I said, you're not doing your job. But have ammunition to go to bat for yourself, and when you have this information, they can justify it. And like I said, it's hard to do, but once you do it, it's like going for a run when you're trying to lose weight. Nobody likes going for a run, but once you go for a run, an hour later, you're like, I'm glad I did that. This is one of the opportunities. And once you do it a couple times, you become more confident. You can have more conversations, and then you can have those conversations with your employees that work for you. You're having, hey, Maggie, are you happy? Bill, are you happy? And so forth. It makes you a better boss. So if you're just going to hide, it doesn't work out well. So
from your experience, Robert, how do you navigate those conversations with our clients? with?
How do I navigate?
If a candidate receives a counteroffer, are you then going back to our client and
Ooh.
asking for more money, or how do you negotiate? Or
Let's do this. Let's give our client and candidate a name. So let's call our client ABC Company.
Mhm.
Let's give our candidate's name Maggie.
Perfect. I wonder where that came from.
So Maggie, so you're telling me Maggie said, listen, my current employer made me an offer.
sure,
Counteroffer.
counteroffer.
My response to Maggie is, well, what do you want to do? And depending on what she says, depends on what, it's like a broken windshield, right? And there's steps you take. But Maggie said, my employer made it. I'm like, well, do you want to take it? I do. Okay. What would you like me to tell ABC Company?
Sure.
Right? Now, by this time, Maggie and I have been on enough dates, enough conversations. I know her personality, she should know mine. So I might say to her, do you want me to ask ABC Company for more money? And she said, yes, could you? I said, well, I'm only doing this, like I'm putting my name on the line.
Mhm.
You know, if they do this, will you do this, right? That gets the lying and deception and creating a web of deceit and so forth. But I'm going to when my candidate tells me that, I'm going to say, because like I said, most good employees, candidates, what have you, are going to get counteroffers. So my job is to expect that. I should be telling her this whole time, you might get a counteroffer. I should also tell my customer, ABC Company, this may happen. Now, no one listens, but I at least, I share that with them.
Sure.
So my employer is going to be mad. She's going to be it's messy. But I asked her, I said, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to take it? Okay, well, if you take it, this could happen. You want me to ask for money, see what happens? So, but having been doing as long as I have been doing it, there's not a lot of things I haven't seen. So I would ask first thing, Meg, what do you want to do? And she might say, listen, I only started doing this because I wanted to make more money at my current employer. I said, well, I screwed up on not asking that question in our first phone call, right? And more than likely, I'm not going to share that, but I should gather the information. So if you want to stay, great. It happens, blah, blah, blah. I might say, I'll call you in 6 months if it doesn't work out. But that's, joking or satire. But that's kind of how I manage it, if that helps.
Do you ever negotiate more salary for them or more benefits with the future employer?
It really depends. It really depends on my relationship with Maggie or the candidate. Why? You got to give me the why, because maybe, for example, Maggie was making $100,000, and I know her. Based on her skills test, she's making $150,000, but she's working at a company that pays like crap. Maybe they paid her $120, they paid her $130, right? And I know Maggie wants to make more. So it all depends. It really depends.
Okay.
But here's the honest part. You have to be honest, because if you're not honest, everything breaks. So that's why I asked Maggie, what do you want to do? Do you want me to go try to get this? But if she's leaning towards staying at her current employer, then you cut bait. It's just, my customer will get mad, but I can't fight for Maggie if I don't.
Sure.
If Maggie, I tell this to my children. If you think about a boxing ring, and this is a unique analogy, but you can either you can fight someone in front of you, you can have support from behind you. And my daughter and I like this. That's just how we're built. So now I always said, listen, I can be your coach behind you, pushing you, towards competitor, or you can fight me. And I said, I'm pretty good at fighting. So with Canada, it's the same thing. We can be like this, or I can be behind you, helping you out. But I'm only going to help you out if you want help.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because one thing, and I know we're tight on time, but one thing we didn't even get into is like, if a candidate has 2 offers
Right.
and they're counter offering the offers,
Right.
One thing you will hear Robert ask candidates all the time is just, which job do you want more?
Yep.
Because if the candidate comes out and says they want the other job, why would he go to bat with his client to just get more money if they fundamentally want the other job? They're going to take the job that they want.
Sure.
Drives people crazy.
Yeah.
Which job do you want more? Why are you asking me that? Because that's just like, which job do you want more? It's simple.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we want to place people long term. We don't want to just
Yeah, I don't
get the fee.
What do you want more?
Yep.
So, any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Maggie. Thank you, and Mandy and Al. So we'll do this again next month. We'll send out some invites and so forth with some dates. And please, I'm open to any ideas and every conversations. And please comment and email me at rceresi@CiresiMorek.com. So thank you so much.